The following is one in a series of informational videos focused on assisting brooder units who are producing or plan to produce dual-purpose birds. A brooder unit, also known as a mother unit, purchases day-old chicks and feed from a hatchery and raises them to 28 to 35 days of age. The chicks have been fully vaccinated by this age, and the brooder unit then sells the birds to smallholder farmers so they may produce eggs and meat for home consumption or sale. A dual-purpose bird is one which produces more eggs and grows faster than the traditional village chicken. Yet the bird's plumage looks the same as the local breeds. In this video, we want to discuss the important points regarding early feed management of your flock. Many farmers think the feeding of birds is simple, and as long as the birds have feed available, they are okay. But it is more complex than that, and proper feeding not only provides your birds with balanced nutrients for optimal growth and performance, but has the biggest impact on your profit. Typically, feed makes up about 60 to 70% of cost of your flock, so it is essential you have a robust feeding program to reduce any wastage and give your birds the nutrition they need. In this video, we are going to show you proper feeding techniques for your chicks in the brooder unit and for the older birds once they are placed in the backyard. We will address the right quality and quantity of feed for superior performance that will maximize your profits. As with other critical parts of brooding, proper feed management starts before your chicks arrive on your farm. It is important your house is set up properly prior to the chicks arriving. You want all water fonts filled and at room temperature, and the feed in the feeder trays are ready for the chicks' arrival. The stress of transport can make chicks tired, and they need to have easy access to the feed and water as soon as they're placed in the brooding area. The key to early feed management is to provide support to help the chicks find their first feed, and then to gradually transition them to the tube feeders. When the chicks arrive, the heart and lungs are functioning, but the digestive tract is not. It is not until the chick takes its first bite of feed that the digestive tract starts up and begins to function. So getting them on feed quickly is important. Make sure you purchase your feed from a reputable dealer and that it is a quality blended feed. A quality feed includes being free from strong odors, no evidence of mold, is dry, and that there are not whole grains or big differences in the particle size in the bag. The ideal size for a baby chick is 2 to 3 millimeter particle sizes. Before the chicks arrive, it is essential to prepare the house to get the feed out. Feeder trays should be full for the first feeding and placed on paper. The feed on the paper will attract the chicks to the feed. Go ahead and fill the trays to capacity, even letting it spill over onto the paper for the first feeding. It is important to put paper under the feed trays to prevent feed spillage into the litter, and this also will help attract the chicks to the trays. If feed gets into the litter, this can be wasteful and can also result in the birds eating litter, which is what you do not want. Again, it is important that your chicks have access to room temperature water. Also, a tip to help train chicks on finding the hanging tube feeders is to go ahead and place the tube feeders on the ground and fill the pan so it is overflowing onto the paper underneath. But only do this once to prevent feed wastage. If the chicks are in their comfort zone, they will become curious and start exploring and will find the main feeders. Remember, the supplemental feeder lids are the main source of feed for the first 7 days, but we want to help the chicks transition to the larger feeders so that when the supplemental feeders are removed, they will already be trained to go to the hanging feeders. We want to spread the trays evenly across the room with water fonts around them. Remember, water is essential to move the feed throughout the digestive tract, and if there's not enough water, the birds will reduce feed intake. A good practice is to check the crop full of your chicks after 12 hours. The crop is a little pouch at the bottom of the neck, just before the breastbone, and the crop should be full and soft. If it is empty, the chick is not eating. If it is hard, the chick is eating but may not have enough water to push it to the stomach. A good rule of thumb is for every 1 gram of feed a chick eats, it will need 2 grams of water. After 12 hours, randomly pick up 10 chicks and feel the crop. At least 8 out of the 10 should have feed in the crops, and after 48 hours, all chicks should have feed in the crop. If the number of chicks with feed in the crop is low, quickly look to see if the temperature in the room is warm enough, as chilled chicks will huddle to stay warm and won't eat. It is important to have a zone of comfort for your birds so that they are comfortable and will venture out to find feed and water. Also look to make sure there is enough feeder space and feed is present, and make sure the feed particles are not too large for the chicks to eat. Feed texture is important for baby chicks. If the feed is coarsely ground and has large particles which are over 3 millimeters, then the chick cannot physically eat it. Watch your chicks throughout the day and do not let the feeder tray stay empty for a long period of time. The temptation is to put a lot of feed in the tray so that you don't have to fill it as often, but this is actually hurting you more than it is helping you. Chicks love to scratch, and if they have satisfied their hunger and are content, then they will want to play in the feed and can spill more feed than you realize into the litter. This can cause wastage and also doesn't allow the chicks to clean up the feed, which can create opportunity for mold growth in the tray. Make sure you have enough feed trays so that all the chicks can have access to the feed at once. We recommend 1 feeder tray for every 50 chicks. So if you have 500 chicks, you need a minimum of 10 feeder trays. Otherwise, the bigger, more dominant chicks will eat first and can cause stunting and poor uniformity in your flock. If you start seeing a lot of smaller birds and stunted birds, add more feeders and feed more often to assure the smaller birds are getting enough to eat. If they get hungry and can't get to feed, they will start eating litter and will fall further behind, as this can result in higher mortalities. Yes, feed is expensive, but this modern breed convert feed very efficiently and will grow fast. We want as many healthy birds as we can get. Each morning, dump out any old feed and litter. Remove all caked litter and any moldy feed that may be in the corners of the tray. Routinely clean and disinfect trays every 3 days, and be sure and wash any trays that are visibly dirty. It is important that the tray is dry before adding any new feed, as the moisture can create mold growth. Make sure you have 1 hanging tube feeder for every 70 chicks. If you have 500 chicks, you will need a minimum of 7 feeders, spaced evenly throughout the house. Be sure and not hang a feeder too close to the side wall or near posts, as you want your birds to be able to access all sides of the feeder. If it is too close to the wall, you are eliminating 25% of the feeder space. The same applies to your drinkers. Keep feeders adjusted so that they can easily eat out of them without having to stretch and use a lot of effort. But you also want to raise them gradually to prevent birds from pulling the feed out of the feeders onto the litter, wasting your feed. A good rule of thumb is to have the top of the feeder lip halfway up the wing of the smallest birds. Storage of feed. Purchase your feed from a reputable feed supplier. Make sure it is blended with appropriate vitamins and other essential minerals. You want to store your feed lifted off the ground and in a dry place that can keep rodents out. When you first purchase your feed, take a handful and look at the texture. Is it a small particle or is it too coarse for your chicks to eat? It is okay to have larger particle size once your birds are 14 days or older, but not for a baby chick. Smell the feed. Does it smell sour or moldy? If so, do not feed it to your birds as it can cause severe intestinal problems such as diarrhea. Once birds are brooded and placed outside to roam freely, the intense feeding of the birds changes. The dual-purpose birds are true scavengers and can live off vegetation, insects, and table waste, and do not require full feeding. To protect your birds from predators or theft, have a secure place for your birds to roost in at night. It is a good practice to give your birds a small amount of supplemental feed at night to bring them back to the chicken coop, but only a small quantity, and always have a source of clean water available to them inside of the coop. Hybrid dual-purpose breeds are bred for efficiency and performance. The more you feed them with a well-balanced diet, the more they will grow and lay eggs. However, you must keep good records on the money you pay for feed versus additional output to make sure it is worth the costs. Remember, these birds are bred to forage and scavenge and can produce 140 to 160 eggs, and the males can reach weights of 2 kgs at 14 weeks without full feeding after the first 5 weeks. If the birds were brooded, fed properly, and vaccinated, your flock will give you a return on your investment with minimal inputs of feed and provide your family with a good source of income and nutrition. At the World Poultry Foundation, we encourage consumption of eggs, particularly to children and pregnant women, as it is a good, affordable source of protein. Feed management is simple if you follow the basics in this video. It will not only give your birds the daily intake needed for optimal performance, but will prevent wastage and increase your profit.